Marlene, and a warm welcome from Glasgow, Scotland to all around the world. In this series of Marlene and Friends, I'll be sharing with you the most amazing group of people who have all the skills and expertise to make our world one of health and peace for all who live here, humans and non-humans alike. Hi, my gorgeous friend and colleague Patricio Garcia de Paredes, Education Director of the Kushi Institute in Japan, has been at the forefront of macrobiotics since he was a wee boy. He's going to share with you all this week his incredible journey in his life since his mother took him and his brother from Spain to live in Boston to study at the Kushi Institute. Bill and I had the absolute pleasure of working with Patricio in Spain, and we can testify to the fact that his food is delicious, his classes and workshops are inspirational, and his gentle and humorous personality is just a joy to be around. The devastation of the health of the Japanese people as they have moved away from the traditional diet of rice and plant-based foods sees them with the same increases in cancers, diabetes, heart disease and obesity as the rest of the world. In Japan in the 1950s, the proportion of animal foods to plant foods were 1 to 15, and as Patricio explains here, it's now 1 in 3. Hi, I'm Marlene Watson-Tara in service for a healthy world. My guest today is the gorgeous Patricio Garcia de Paredes, my friend from Spain, the US and Japan. Patricio is the Education Director, Teacher, Lecturer, Consultant and Lifestyle Coaching Counsellor at the Kushi Institute in Japan. He's the author of 2 cookbooks featuring natural quality sweets and also was the key person in the development for 2 cookbooks by Michio Kushi featuring the macrobiotic diet. Patricio, yokoso, bienvenido, welcome.
Thank you, Marlene. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm very happy to have you on my show today. It's wonderful. You're Spanish, you're educated in America, you live in Japan. You've taught in various countries, including the US, Spain, Portugal, Singapore, Philippines, Israel, Peru, Costa Rica. As a professional chef, you give public lectures and cooking classes. So I would say you win hands down for spreading the macrobiotic message to literally thousands of people around the world, Patricio. Can you share with the audience your macrobiotic journey with us?
Sure. Actually, my journey began in Spain, like you mentioned. I'm from Spain, but actually more than me, it was my mother who began. When I was a kid, she encountered many health problems. Actually, since she was born, she had many health problems. But after having a couple of kids and around her 30s, that's when she was really encountering very serious situation, and the doctors, they were not able to help her, even through medication and surgeries. And so she began to wonder what she can do by herself. So I think that was the turning point when she began to do something by herself. And then she looked around for food, different way of eating and lifestyle. And we're talking about 1970s in Spain. And Michio Kushi, with his wife, Marlene Kushi, came to lecture in Barcelona. And that was the first time she heard about macrobiotics, but she thought, I'll go and check it out. And that's how it all began. And out of that encounter, 3 days of lectures and learning, she began to make changes in her way of eating. And she became more interested to learn more about the traditional food culture, because we were living in a small island in the Mediterranean. And she's originally from Chile, so she didn't know much about the traditional food culture of the island. But after listening to macrobiotics, actually, she became very interested to learn more about it. And she began to, she would put us in the car, and she would drive around the island, and she would go and buy vegetables, and she would go and buy sourdough bread and so on. So, that was our first, that was my beginning. And eventually, after she got better, she wanted the whole family to become macrobiotic, or to start eating better, better quality. That was not easy at the beginning, because some things we liked, some things we didn't like. But, she was the type of person that never gave up. And with a little patience, she changed our way of eating. And then her next stage was to share it with the people. She just was such a big impact in her life that so much change took place after she changed her way of eating that she wanted to share with people. And that's how she became a Macrobiotic cook and teacher. And she did a lot of pioneering work in Spain at the beginning, because in those days there was not much going on. Even in Spain, the word organic or it just didn't exist yet. We had to go sometimes driving to France to go shopping. So it was different times.
Yeah.
But that was our beginning, and then eventually she decided to study more, and she went to Boston, to Brookline. That was where the Kushi Institute was located, and many people from around the world were going there to study. And she loved the atmosphere there. It was exciting. There were people from all over the world coming. There were very wonderful natural food stores. There were restaurants. There were new books coming out. So it was exciting times. And she loved it there. So she thought, I'd like to move here. And that's what we did.
How old were you then, Patricio?
That was, I did all my high school in the United States. I was 15 years old.
Okay, wow.
When I went to America, yeah. And we moved to Boston, so, big change. But I really liked it. It was not just the new Macrobiotic thing, but it was America was much more, international.
Sure.
I got in touch with so many other people from different cultures, so it was very kind of rich kind of experience for me to be able to go to America. So I really appreciate that I had that chance.
That's fantastic. That's what's so nice about, all of us working together here, because I'm kind of going around the world here with all different cultures. I mean, your background's probably the most incredible out of everybody's, Spanish, Japanese, American. It's wonderful. But when we do embrace other people's cultures, it's just so beautiful. It makes your world so much bigger.
Exactly. It was, even, for example, in terms of food, because I love cooking. Since I'm a little kid, I began to cook at home, and we were doing kind of like a Spanish style of Macrobiotic cooking, or local, style. And going to America, I learned more about South American style of cooking and Asian style of cooking and Northern Europe and Middle East. So it was very, a way to taste a little bit of what's going on around the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So and you'll know the same as me, Patricio, when people are thinking macrobiotics, they think it's a Japanese diet. No, it's not, it's not. I mean, it's like,
I know.
It's so misunderstood, and that's why I'm delighted to have you on here today. Patricio, the Okinawans are one of the longest living, healthiest people on the planet in Japan. Can you share with the audience around the world what is happening in Japan to the Japanese since they have moved away from their cultural diet lifestyle?
Sure. After the war 70 years ago, Japan has gone through a complete transformation, particularly food and lifestyle. And the Okinawans, which are well known for longevity, there are, in the small island, there are over 400 people who are centenarians, over 100 years old. But they maintain a very kind of casual, it's kind of modern, but it's traditional, and they eat local foods, and they still cook, and they eat simple foods. And so they have a very nice, condition and longevity, and they gather together a lot, they share, they help each other. It's not just food, it's a lifestyle also there that is very supportive.
Sure.
But on the other hand, the majority of people in Japan have really moved away from that, and they embraced a more Western diet, and they increased a lot of animal food. For example, I've been checking, the government has been taking information data since the 1950s, because right after the war there was not enough food, and they were worrying about malnutrition, and they were thinking of importing food from outside. So they were thinking what kind of nutrients may be needed to prevent malnutrition. So they started to take every year data, which is continuing up to now. And I was checking pretty much, for example, the amount of animal food that they were taking in the 1950s, and the proportion between plant food and animal food was about 1 to 15.
Incredible.
Which means the amount of animal food was very small.
Sure.
But right now it's about 1 to 3.
Oh, wow.
Completely different, yes.
And that's why a big part of your work is doing health counselling and seeing people with all these non-communicable diseases that we have globally around the world.
Now it's global, yeah. They still in the West, sometimes there is an image that the Japanese people are more healthy than other people in the world. But right now, the great majority, especially of those living in the big cities, they have about the same kind of rates of lifestyle diseases as in the West. It's getting very close.
Yeah. And also, Patricio, from the breast cancer in terms of Japan, it was like virtually zero until Japanese women moved to the West, particularly to America, after the war, and they started adopting that way of life. Their breast cancer increased the same as what American or women around the world get now. So, yeah.
Sure. Right now, for women, breast cancer is number 1 in Japan too.
Incredible. Yes. Unbelievable.
The thing is that here it's been so drastic, so dramatic. Of course. Because, for example, in terms of animal food, also they ate more fish and seafood, and now it's a lot of meat and a lot of eggs and dairy. The amount of rice right now, which used to be their staple, when you think of the Japanese diet, it's usually rice with some,
vegetables,
vegetables and so on. The same amount of rice they're eating now is same as dairy, if you weigh it.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
That's a huge change because, nutritionally speaking, is completely different,
Yeah, because there's no fiber or anything in the dairy food, and the
much
fiber.
More fat.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Much more animal protein. Yes.
Jeez. And then you, like me, you have to put up with all the nonsense that lobbyists for the meat industry and the dairy industry write about soya. My goodness, it's a big part of the Japanese culture, the fermentation of soya beans that we use in miso soup, small amounts of tofu. When they write all this absolute, I hate to use the word crap, but it is crap to scaremonger the human population around the world. They're talking about all the soya milks and the soya cheese and the soya yogurts, and the Japanese culture did not live on these products, so we use soya in a completely different way. We use it, which is the most medicinal food in the world, and miso, which is from soya beans. Do you want to touch on that just slightly?
Sure. There's many wonderful aspects of the Japanese diet that we can say they're contributing to good nutrition, balanced nutrition, and good health. And one of them, for sure, I think it's the soybean products.
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, the soybean itself is a wonderful bean. It's a wonderful source of protein, calcium, and so on. So that's one of the reasons why they were able to eat such a small amount of animal food, but yet not have any, problems.
Sure.
And then they found very nice ways to process it in simple ways that you could have so much variety. So as a part of a food culture, there's so much variety of products that came out of that. One of them is tofu, like you're saying, which can be cooked in almost in infinite ways. And then they fermented. They're very good at fermentation. So they started to ferment it, and then again many nice nutritional value, especially like enzymes, bacteria for good for digestion, absorption also become better. And so they used miso. It's like a staple. They used to eat it like almost once a day, and then they had the soy sauce. So it is a wonderful aspect of their traditional food culture that very conducive to good health and good nutrition. Another one that I find is the sea vegetables. That's another wonderful, especially considering modern times. And it's not just particularly of Japanese. In England, in Ireland, also
Scotland,
seaweed. So. But, I find that it's very important also a little bit, especially for people who have a little bit less animal food. It's very strengthening because of the minerals coming from the ocean.
Sure.
And as we know, the soil is becoming more depleted of minerals. So I think many of these foods have a special meaning in modern times, actually. Yes, they're traditional, but I think they have a special meaning for modern times to help us adapt to the changing to the changing times.
That's right.
But going back a little bit also to like something that you pointed out, that sometimes I find that many of these soy products in the West, they became quite popularized, but sometimes they're a little bit overly processed. That's what I find.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
makes it much more difficult to digest.
Yeah.
That makes it, and the combinations and
Well, they have
so more
sugars and all sorts of things in them as well. That is not how soybean traditionally should be used. So people then email me all the time, particularly I work with a lot of women with breast cancer, and they say, you're giving me soya, you shouldn't. It's crazy. So, of course, they trust me and they know what I'm doing, but yeah, it's just, commercial interests all the time.
People should know that soy products is not just Japan, China, all over Asia.
Yeah,
All over
absolutely.
Asia,
Absolutely.
And maybe one aspect of the Japanese is that they were able to maybe refine the process a little bit, so sometimes more delicious or maybe more variety.
Yeah.
But it's been a staple all over Asia. So and we're talking hundreds, thousands of years.
Thousands of years, yes, of course, and and it's just ridiculous the stuff that you read about it. But the Japanese have this innate ability to make everything beautiful, tastier, simpler. Like the 5 transformations of energy from the Chinese. It's just so beautifully expressed. Patricia, your wife and kids, they're Japanese. Obviously, you've lived in Japan a long time. Have your kids been brought up with the Macrobiotic philosophy as you were?
Yes, pretty much. They follow. What I learned. It's what we do at home. So they pretty much since my wife was pregnant already, she was eating more natural way, similar to what I've been eating. More plant-based way of eating and more natural. And so they grew up with that. And of course, you have to be flexible. Modern parents, you cannot be strict with them or kind of not let them do this or that. They have to experience modern life too. So I guess when they go out, they taste food and they may enjoy it too. But what I'm very grateful is that when they come home, they enjoy it. Wonderful. And that's what we eat at home. So I'm very grateful for that. In my case, it was not so easy. My mother, we gave a lot of trouble to my mother. So I guess the earlier you start, the easier it becomes for the parents.
Yeah.
So for us, it was much, much more easy. But it's interesting because many of their friends, although they're Japanese, they don't eat much the traditional Japanese style. Sometimes the image for those who have not come to Japan is that Japanese people are still eating, very nicely home prepared meals and so on, but it's very far away from that. Fast food after United States is the most popular, and highly processed foods, about 65 to 70% of the food consumed at home is all packaged foods. Convenience stores are all over the place. So I would say that it's not only the increase of animal food and less eating of plant foods, but highly processed in Japan is a huge problem, and lots of chemicals, very high chemicals.
That's right. You go into these supermarkets and it's just lines and lines and lines of dead food. And Bill and I often say, you'd be as well eating the cardboard box. There's more nutrients in that than there is in the crap that's in the boxes, all the chemicals, as you say. In fact, I was chatting the other day with a friend, we were talking about, just the whole thing about, newborns coming into the world now, and they have over 400-500 chemicals in the umbilical cord.
Yeah, exactly.
What chance do these kids have? They're born with in vitro heart disease, cancer already going to be happening. It's criminal. So
yeah, that study is very mind-opening.
Mind-blowing.
It's just too much.
It's what's ingested through the parents. Yeah. So you're currently writing 2 new books. I hope they're going to be in English and not just Japanese.
Well, I write them in English because my Japanese writing is very poor. But they're being translated into Japanese, and first they're going to be published in Japanese, and then hopefully in the near future I want to have them in English too, sure, because they're basically written in English and they only need a small adjustments, and they can be, these are international issues, they're global issues.
Sure.
Health, food, environment, social. aspects of the way we eat in modern times. It's a global issue. So
Yeah.
I think definitely.
My book
I'm
currently
going
being
to soon.
translated into Czechoslovakian, which is quite interesting because in Prague there's like a huge upsurge of all these young people wanting to learn, and that's fantastic. Macrobiotics.
Yes.
So they're using my book, Macrobiotics for All Seasons, in the school, and that's been translated right now. So that's exciting.
Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned that, I'm very excited. One of the things that I work with a lot of young people.
Yeah, wonderful.
I think in the case of Japan, the main interest in these kind of issues regarding health and food, younger people are the ones that are most becoming interesting, and it's so wonderful because many of them, for example, young mothers who are either from now on they want to have kids or they have small kids. So we're talking about two generations of healthier lifestyle and eating habits, and they have a lot of kind of passion to do something toward the future to improve the world. And so that aspect, I'm very happy that I can work with young people.
Well, that's beautiful because Patricio, and if the world doesn't know, we should let them know that macrobiotics actually started as a social movement. It wasn't about brown rice and beans, and I think it kind of lost the pathway through the world. People say to me, if I'm being interviewed for magazines or articles that I'm writing, the first thing they write is macrobiotics is a Japanese diet, and I want to say, no, it's not. It's a movement. It's a revolution because, that's how it started in the 60s with people like Bill Tara.
Mm-hmm. Actually, making a comment on your comment, I teach a lot of Western cooking here.
Yeah, wonderful.
Or they say Western style macrobiotics. Because the Japanese, after a while, maybe they've not been in the kitchen too much and they've been eating a lot of packaged food. So of course they're interested to learn how to make, their own traditional kind of menus. But actually, one of my kind of appeal in Japan that I have is by being Western is to introduce more Western style of cooking, Mediterranean cooking, sweets. So it is, it's a very international, it's a global movement, and it can be adapted to any culture. And anyways, nobody can go back to their traditions anymore. And everybody, in Japan, there was the government did an inquiry, like a survey in the high school kids. What were the top, favorite foods? And their top 10 favorite foods, there was not even one Japanese food. So, younger people in Japan are more used to Western foods and Chinese foods or, than their own traditional culture. So, it's an internet, you can adapt it to any culture of the world, and we need to adapt it to modern times to make it work for everybody. So there's no limitations of culture. What we do is what we learn from different cultures and we incorporate good aspects of them. So I think you're
absolutely right on the money. And we don't live in a country anymore, we live in the world. Even my own country, I don't recognise my own country, because it's so, it's just completely different. The world has changed beyond recognition, and we all have to embrace that. And when I was speaking with Madonna chef, Mayumi, of course, and we were talking about that too. I'm in Scotland, so I adapt the diet for people, in my culture as she does in Japan, or the person, or you did in Spain, or it has to have that element. So the cooking that we do, it's a fusion of everything. But 95% of what I teach when clients come here, Patricio, can be purchased in a supermarket, and that's why it's not a Japanese diet. It's whole grains and beans and pulses and fruits and vegetables and seeds. And 5% of the magic that I call it, and I'm so grateful to the Japanese for, having this, is the miso soup, the dried daikon, the dried shiitake, the sea vegetables. To me, that's what boosts the whole enzymes, the digestive system, and I love and adore it. So I'm introducing 5% to something that they should go buy. It's so easy, right?
Sure. And then there's another point that people also should realize. I try to do things, I actually end up doing things very internationally because that's what people like about me. And, I've lived in many countries and I've absorbed a lot of, wonderful aspects of their their food cultures. So I like to do things international, but what I emphasize all the time is that the main foods actually should be local.
Yes, exactly.
And grown locally. So like what you pointed out, we're talking about the grains should be local, the vegetables should be local and more seasonal, because that's we cannot continuously shipping foods around the world. So that small percent coming from another culture, that's fine, but the majority should be local. That's why diets have to be adapted to the local food cultures. Otherwise it's
we're running
very
the planet. I mean, right now,
practice.
Right now there's pineapples up to the gazonga on the top of the ceiling in the supermarkets. It's freezing here. The last thing you want is these high acid tropical sugary fruits in your diet. Or people in Glasgow have a mango for breakfast. I mean, really? It's unbelievable. So ancient wisdom and modern day science has come together, and as I spoke to, when I was chatting to Bill, or even when you and Bill and I, it must be 8 years ago since we were together in Spain and had fun and teaching and doing stuff, but it's really lost the plot, it's lost the way, and that's why we're all kind of coming together in this series and making the world smaller. So you're out there in Japan right now, I'm in Glasgow, Bill's teaching in Portugal. Yesterday I was speaking to Nandita in India. I'm on to the US later this afternoon. So we're all trying to do the same job. It doesn't matter where we are in the world, right? Patricio, I could speak to you forever, but we're running out of time. Share with me the funniest story that's happened to you in your career.
Okay. Well, actually, there've been a few, and I'll go because as part of what I do a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
And I think that actually there's a wonderful aspect about changing food cultures. When there is that kind of mixture of food cultures, but there's always also new learnings and new experiences. And for me, when I was a kid, there were many stories that my mother and us as kids kind of experienced. And one of them was there was a Japanese teacher that came to Barcelona. She stayed in my home and she was trying to show us a few new things. And she introduced to us, or she wanted to introduce to us, Japanese food, which is very unusual and even not very common in the West, which is called natto. Have you heard about natto?
Yes, we use it.
So, it's basically very similar to a very smelly French cheese, but instead of milk, they use soybeans. But, it was completely new. We never knew about it. But my mother got a recipe and got a starter to make natto, and she decided to try. And so she followed the directions, and when she opened it up, and it was sticky and it was smelly, and she thought that she had made a mistake, so she just threw it away. And it was 8 years later when we went to Boston, actually, that we went to Erewhon, the natural food store, one of the pioneer natural food stores in the United States, and she looked, oh, natto, and she bought it. She brought it home. She opened it, and it was exactly the same of what she made. So. Sometimes it takes a bit of learning when we share, things from other cultures, but eventually, we learn. And
we do, absolutely. Well, I've even, people say to me, Marlene, put that away, it smells like smelly socks. It really is.
For me too, the first time that I experienced natto, first it was the smell. I kept looking around in the kitchen. I thought something went spoiled.
But for me, the natto has incredible concentration of vitamin K, which people lack a lot as well. But for the intestines, I mean, when I'm working with people with digestive problems, and also they can pop it in their miso broth. They don't need to eat it with the rice. The taste actually is okay. It's just the smell that people go are overwhelming. Yeah. So well done, your mother. She just thought, let's try it again one more time.
Well, one of the kind of my mother always kind of. Taught all of me and my brother is never give up. Keep on trying. And I think when you try a new lifestyle, when you try new foods, you go into a new journey, just don't give up. Keep trying. Adjust it to yourself, because another thing is that macrobiotics is not like everybody has to do the same thing.
Of course.
It's very flexible, it's very adaptable, and everybody has to make it work for themselves.
That's right.
So,
and
we're not giving rules and regulations. We are actually just sharing our experience.
It's interesting, Patricio, because people say, oh, it's so rigid, there's all these rules. There's not. If you're taking away something,
the opposite.
Exactly, it's so flexible. You can adapt it, you know, to how you want to live your life. And I am so blessed to teach this unbelievable philosophy. It gives me incredible health and energy, and you know, I just fly out of the seat of my pants every day with it. So I feel so fortunate to do what I do.
I feel very fortunate. You know, what brought me into this path, it was not because of my mother. No. My mother was, you know, the seed. But after high school, I had to figure out what I was going to do by myself. And one of the first things that I really, for me, was I felt so grateful.
Yeah.
At that time, when I started kind of going back, what I want to do and, you know, what I've done in my life up to now, I felt so grateful to have, you know, crossed my path with Macrobiotic, and it kept my health for all those years, and I found that it was for the whole world right now, for the times we are living. Actually, there's so much need of good food and better lifestyles. So for me, gratitude was a very strong reason why I became involved in Macrobiotic. But another interesting thing also that I find is that many of the things that we began, you know, 30 to 40 years ago, actually modern science is kind of proving so many of those things, which is an amazing thing, you know, for those of us who began maybe a little bit earlier than many people right now. Because at the beginning there was not much scientific background to kind of back up all of these ideas. There was a lot of wisdom coming from traditions, and there was a lot of, you know, experience and observation by teachers, like by Bill, for example. And but now it's all coming together right now, you know, and that's a very exciting thing, because, you know, it opens the door for more collaboration.
Sure.
And to really do something a little bit more, you know, for the world. Yeah.
And as we all know, Victor Hugo, in the words of the man himself, nothing is as strong as an idea whose time has come. And that's what I feel in the world. I feel so blessed to have all these amazing friends that are doing this series with me, Patricio. And I love you so much. And Bill and I will get to Japan and we'll do a fabulous course with you, and you know, we look very forward to that. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patricio. Que tengas un buen día.
Gracias.
De nada.